Why is it so hard to admit that you're wrong? Think about the last time that someone told you you were wrong. Maybe they didn't say those exact words, but they clearly had a different opinion about the situation. What happened in your body? For me, I flood. I go Red Ross, right? I go from 0 to 100. But maybe you're able to be a little bit more self aware. Maybe you notice that your shoulders tense, your heart races, and you immediately get a little bit defensive, trying to explain what you did and why you did it. We get defensive because we feel attacked. Admitting you're wrong feels surprisingly threatening. Today, we are talking about why our brains are fighting taking accountability, why owning your mistakes feels so uncomfortable, and why learning to say, I was wrong might be the most powerful skill you
Welcome
learn.
to the Be Your Own Life Coach podcast, where you master your mind and coach your own comeback. You are the hero, you are the guide, and you will learn to architect your life from the inside. I'm your host, Bretagne Stowe, joined by my sister and co host, Annika Wilder. Enjoy the show.
So, why is it so hard? I I actually don't think that most people wake up and say, today I'm going to hurt someone. Today I'm going to be selfish. Screw everybody else. I think we're honestly trying to be the best version of ourselves and trying to make the best decision we can with the information we have based on our current emotions and circumstances and experiences and the maturity that we have in that moment. When you make a decision, you genuinely believe it's the right one. This is how we operate. We are trying to make the best decision possible, but you're not perfect. Sorry, friends, newsflash, you're not perfect. I'm not perfect. And even though you're doing the best that you can, we still make mistakes. So when someone tells you you are wrong, it can feel a little heavier than just being told you're wrong. It's as if they're not just questioning your decision or what you did, but it's like they're questioning you, your identity. It's like saying, not just, hey, Britannia, you're wrong. It's Britannia, you are wrong. Everything you do is wrong, right? We start to look at it that way. You see, our identity gets attached to our choices, and this is something we do as people. This is completely normal. So I know I'm not alone here. We have these identities that we've built around ourselves, and we have these expectations on the characteristics that we carry with these identities. That maybe it's, being a good parent and what that means, being intelligent or kind or honest or thoughtful. So when we make a mistake that suddenly goes against one of these identities, suddenly our brain goes, wait a sec. If I was wrong about this, am I wrong about other things? Maybe I am not who I thought I was. So we start to have this like mini identity crisis. Go, oh, I made a mistake, in parenting my son, so maybe I'm not a good parent. I did something that wasn't the most kind, so maybe I'm not a kind person like I thought. I mean, that's scary if you think about it. Having this identity crisis, no wonder it's so hard to admit you're wrong. I know that it can be so hard. It can be incredibly humbling because our brain is trying to protect ourselves and trying to protect that identity because we want to believe we are a good parent or we are kind. Psychologists, they call this cognitive dissonance. It's this discomfort that we feel when two beliefs collide. So if you think, I make good decisions, which I think most of us do, but then you're called out and told you're wrong, then you think, I make bad decisions? And how can these two things be true? Only one can be true. And while I believed I made good decisions, there's new information on the table that's telling me I make bad decisions. So now I think I can't make good decisions and I only make bad decisions. Our brain doesn't know how to make sense of it and tries to reduce the discomfort. So we defend, we justify, we blame, we make excuses, we minimize, not because we're being dishonest or trying to be stubborn or mean, but because our brains love consistency. Our brain doesn't know what to do with the idea that you made a mistake or that these two things can be true. You see, we all have this ego, right? And an ego is not necessarily a bad thing. I know that we've used it that way, like, wow, that guy's got a big ego. But actually, we all have an ego, and it has one job. It's to protect our identity. It's constantly whispering to us, saying, protect yourself, don't look like a fool, explain, defend. There's a reason why you did what you did. Don't let them think you're incompetent. Right. And sometimes I've even said that, like, hey, I'm not stupid here. I've used those words. That the ego isn't evil or inherently, bad. It's just scared and it's fragile. So imagine, I love my analogies. Imagine your identity is like a house, and every belief about yourself is a brick. When someone points out that you have made a mistake, it can feel like someone is reaching into your home and taking out a brick. This could be a cornerstone, right? This could be a pretty big foundational belief. It could just be a random brick in the wall, right? But we start to panic because, hang on, this is my identity. You're taking pieces of me out, and I didn't give you permission to do that. I wasn't ready to remove those bricks. And so, if you're making multiple mistakes and you're being called out for being wrong back to back or multiple times, it feels like people are removing brick after brick after brick. And it can feel like your whole house is about to come crumbling down. But people who have learned, who are mature, who realize that removing a brick is not going to make the whole house collapse. In fact, it gives us an opportunity to build back stronger, to correct. Maybe that brick was uneven. Maybe it didn't belong there in the first place. Maybe it had lost its integrity. When it feels like someone is attacking your identity, you're actually given the opportunity, an invitation to build better, to be better. That's what happens when you choose to admit when you are wrong. Now, one of the reasons why it can be incredibly difficult to admit when you are wrong or when you made a mistake, why it's so painful, is because we often confuse guilt with shame. So, guilt says, I did something wrong. No big deal. Shame says, I am something wrong. I'm going to say that again because that is heavy, right? Guilt says, I did something wrong. Not a big deal. I do things all the time. I did something wrong. But shame says, I am wrong. I only make bad decisions. I can't possibly make good decisions, right? I am wrong. I am not enough. And so you have to allow yourself to go towards guilt to admit when you've done something wrong, but not pair it up with shame. One invites growth while the other one shuts you down. Healthy accountability is having guilt. Guilt is a natural emotion that we should be feeling, but toxic perfectionism, that's where shame lives, right? You've been there. You've had a shame spiral. I've had I mean, gosh, I feel like it was just a couple of days ago that I had one of those. And you have to stop yourself and go, no, no, no. You can admit you are wrong and you screwed up, and it doesn't have to actually alter your whole identity. You're still a good person. You just made a mistake. And unfortunately, we do group these together, telling ourselves that if we feel guilt, we will feel shame. But it doesn't have to go together. You can feel guilt, admit you're wrong, and move on and not bring shame into the picture. So, I've been thinking a lot about this because I had made a mistake recently. I had gotten into a squabble. I talked about this in a previous episode, and I said some things that I wish I could take back. And I did not talk to my husband for a couple of hours afterwards. And when I finally did get to talk to him, there were other people around. So I just did like a quick apology, but it wasn't enough. And I could feel it wasn't enough. And it was just sitting heavy in my chest. Well, the day went on and I didn't say anything. And I continued to allow this to spiral. And I'm thinking, is my husband going to bring this up? Is he going to be like, whoa, whoa, you were out of bounds the other day? Because he has every right to call me out like that. And I'm just kind of sitting in this anxiety, waiting for him to say something to tell me that I am wrong instead of I did something wrong. And I realized, and that's what inspired this episode, was that I not only need to take accountability, but I also need to be the one who takes action. I'm going to continue down the shame spiral if I don't do something different. You see, when you blame, you give your power away. When you make excuses, you give your power away. When you sit and do nothing and wait for someone else to do it for you, you give your power away. When everything is someone else's fault, you are waiting for someone else to fix your life, to fix that circumstance, to fix the way that you're feeling. But when you can take accountability, when you can take accountability and say, I own my part, whether it was the whole 100% or just 10%. That's one of the things I learned from Focus 3 was owning your 20 square feet. Everything within your 20 square feet is your responsibility. You own it, right or wrong. Everything outside of it, you release accountability, but you have fierce accountability within your 20 square feet. Because the moment that you own your part, you now have the power to change it. Do you hear me? You now have the power to change it. When you choose to take accountability and say, I did do something wrong. Accountability is not punishment, it's ownership. And ownership creates freedom, right? Ownership of a car, ownership of a house, ownership of a business. These things can create freedom, just like discipline can create freedom, ownership. Ownership of your life, ownership of your mistakes creates freedom. Now, I know that it feels counterintuitive. I do. I know because it gets uncomfortable. But it's true. If we can get comfortable with being uncomfortable and the feeling of admitting when you are wrong, you will be set free. You'll be set free. You'll want to take accountability for everything around you because then you realize that you have the power to change it. You see, growth actually requires being wrong. There is no growth in being right. Every expert has admitted when they are wrong. Every president and leader has had to apologize. A healthy marriage contains people who can admit, I screwed up. I handled that situation poorly. The people who grow the fastest make mistakes, own those mistakes, and then move on. It's not about not falling down. It's about when you fall down, you getting back up. And one of the fastest ways you can get back up is admitting when you made a mistake. We have this idea that not only is our identity wrapped in all the things that we do, but also our confidence somehow comes into question. Confident people don't have to be right all of the time. Confidence isn't built on being correct. It's about being teachable. And that's a huge difference. The most secure people I know can stand strong and go, I didn't know that, or I misunderstood, or you are right. I've changed my mind. I was wrong, and I am sorry. You see, it is powerful when you admit when you made a mistake or when you didn't know anything. It's evidence that you are learnable, teachable, that you are able to grow. We are attracted to people like that who are constantly trying to be the best version of themselves that aren't necessarily the best, but are striving to be the best every day. That's relatable. That's human. I don't want to be around perfect. I want to be around someone who is putting in the effort every day. Plus, no one likes a know-it-all. Listen, I know that we've done a whole big episode on apologizing and the value of that. But I just want to reiterate that when you do truly own the mistake and you go to the other individual and you say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Have you noticed that shift in the energy? Have you noticed how all of a sudden things soften? Somehow things feel possible again. I can't stress enough the power of saying a simple apology, not I was wrong, but you pissed me off. I was wrong, but I was really tired. I was wrong, but, or excuses, or just say. Doesn't have to be a big explanation. Just say, I was wrong, and let's move on. You see, it's kind of ironic, but the thing that we are afraid of will make people respect us less, often makes them respect us more, right? If you can own your mistakes, people will trust you. They'll relate to you and they'll start to see themselves in you because they also know that they're imperfect and that they are making mistakes. So when you say that you're wrong, when you admit, you are also creating a safe place for them to do the same. In our Coach Yourself segment, I want you to ask yourself some questions the next time you're feeling defensive. It's hard to do this in the moment, so it's going to take some practice. But if you can, when you start to feel flooded, when you start to feel attacked, try to pause, take a deep breath in, let it out, just let it go, and ask yourself, am I so focused on protecting my reputation? Am I honestly considering the outcome of this conversation? What if they're actually 5% right? Maybe I'm having a hard time to admitting that they're 100% right. Maybe they're not. But what if they're 5% right? What if there's a whole story I am telling myself in this moment? What identity is tied to always being right? Why do I think I have to be right? Do I want to be right or do I want to grow? Instead of trying to win every battle right now, right? The battle of being right, allow yourself to win the war by admitting when you are wrong, keeping the desired outcome in mind and pivoting so the next time you feel attacked, you won't have to get on the defensive. One of the strongest people in the room is not the loudest, isn't the smartest, isn't always right. It isn't the person who has to win every argument. It's the person who can look someone in the eye and say, I was wrong and I'm sorry. That's it. Be secure enough in your identity to allow it to evolve. Your mistakes don't have to define you. Your willingness to learn will. So maybe the goal isn't about never being wrong. Maybe it's to become someone who isn't afraid of being wrong because every time you choose truth over ego, you become a little more free.
This has been another episode of the Be Your Own Life Coach podcast. If you found value in today's conversation, subscribe and share the love. And remember the teachings of Lao Tzu. When I let go of what I am, I become what I might be. Until next time, trust yourself, take the wisdom, take the breath, and take the next step.